So there's a couple things that are going on right now in Washington D.C. that has my alarm bells a ringing, and that has to deal with my favorite subject of it all, censorship. We here at Harlan's Media know about it all too well. There's only a handful of individuals in Congress that are fully aware of the dangers of online censorship. But remember, folks, it's the Democrats, and especially the last 4 years of the Biden Harris administration, that Hardlands Media and a lot of us in independent media had to deal with the ever concerning chopping block that was going to affect us. And again, the threat hasn't disappeared. So Representative Thomas Massey actually recently was introducing a bill called House Resolution 1233 to eliminate taxpayer funding of online censorship. And if we remember from last year, journalist, commentator Matt Taibbi recently testified, or this was last year, before Congress in regards to online censorship. And in turn, he was viciously attacked by members of Congress in regards to, again, trying to discredit him, embarrass him on social media. Corporate media was more than happy to carry water for the Democrats as they were, again, promoting further and further online censorship. And it doesn't help when the Democrats, of course, make these weird Freudian slips, such as Ayanna Presley, because we have a 5-minute video of Matt Taibbi giving the Smackdown. But first, hey, Democrats, what'd you say again? I'm pretty sure this might have been an accident, but the last 4 years say something completely different, because I remember a lot of liberals and vote blue no matter who people promoting pro-censorship policies, deplatforming, demonetizing, termination.
Look, let me tell you something. I'll take a bit of umbrage here. I'll speak on behalf of my colleagues. I think I can say we are all willing to work with anyone who's serious about doing the work of censoring the American people and advancing progress.
Huh. You're willing to work with anyone who's willing to censor the American people and go forward with progress. That had to have been a mistake, because I pause here and she's realizing that she probably said something stupid. Say that again. About doing the work of censoring the American people and advancing progress. About doing the work of censoring the American people and advancing progress. Am I wrong here? Did I miss something here, folks? Audience, one more time for all you lovely, beautiful people.
One who's serious about doing the work of censoring the American people and advancing progress.
One more time, and then that's it. I promise. I'm sorry. Sometimes I like to play the rewind button. Just one more time, DJ.
Serious about doing the work of censoring the American people and advancing progress.
Well, Matt Taibbi begs to differ. First of all, I want to give a huge shout out to Jimmy Dore for retweeting this out. But Matt Taibbi did testify before Congress because, again, just for all of you to be fully aware, before I play the video, this is from Representative Thomas Massey. And yes, I've actually reached out to Representative Thomas Massey. Hopefully we can get a sit down. I did message him on a few of the social media platforms, and maybe we can have him on the show, because I'm very interested in House Resolution 1233 to eliminate taxpayer funding of online censorship. I would really like to know about the Google files and, YouTube and everything else. I would love to know this. The Twitter file showed the government colludes with private companies and universities to violate the First Amendment. Congress must use the power of the purse to end this unconstitutional activity. And while again, Representative Thomas Massey may be a Republican, I am willing to work with him. I am willing to talk about House Resolution 1233 so that we can end censorship. Let me say that again. End censorship. Because I remember a time when it wasn't this bad. And we have to reverse these ridiculous policies. I am tired of hearing my audience saying, hey, I'm trying to comment on your posts and it's not letting me. Hey, I'm not being notified. Hey, I'm being unsubscribed. And I'm noticing a lot of content creators are going through the same thing that Hardlands Media is going through. And not all of them are independent media. Some cover different genres altogether. And I am tired of this ridiculous online censorship that was promoted by liberals because everyone's easily triggered. Listen, if you don't like something, don't watch it. Okay? Simple as that. If you want to be an adult. And to all the vote blue, no matter who people who were promoting censorship, deplatforming, termination, and all this other cancel culture BS, I love you, but you are not serious people. That's my favorite Logan Roy quote. And again, here is Thomas Massey, who did take a picture of Matt Taibbi, as well as another colleague, to talk before this congressional hearing about online censorship. So let's play this video. I will not interrupt.
2 years ago, when Michael and I first testified before your Weaponization of Government subcommittee, Democratic members called us so-called journalists, suggested we were bought-off scribes, and questioned our ethics and our loyalties. When we tried to answer, we were told to shut up, take off our tinfoil hats, and remember two things. One, there is no digital censorship, and two, if there is digital censorship, it's for our own good. I was shocked. I thought the whole thing had to be a mistake. There was no way the party that I gave votes to my whole life was now pro-censorship. Then last year, I listened to John Kerry, whom I voted for, talk to the World Economic Forum. Speaking about disinformation, he said, quote, "Our First Amendment stands as a major block to our ability to, quote, hammer it out of existence." He complained that it's really hard to govern because people self-select where they go for their news, which makes it, quote, much harder to build consensus. Now, I defended John Kerry when people said he looks French, but Marie Antoinette would have been embarrassed by this speech. He was essentially complaining that the peasants are self-selecting their own sources of media. What's next, letting them make up their own minds? Lastly, building consensus may be a politician's job, but it's not mine as a citizen or as a journalist. In fact, making it hard to govern is exactly the media's job. The failure to understand this is why we have a censorship problem. This is an Alamo moment for the First Amendment. Most of America's closest allies, as both Rupa and Michael have pointed out, have already adopted draconian speech laws. We are surrounded. The EU's new Digital Services Act is the most comprehensive censorship law ever instituted in a Western democratic society. Ranking Member Raskin, you don't have to go as far as Russia or China to find people jailed for speech. Our allies in England now have an online safety act which empowers the government to jail people for nebulous offenses like false communication or causing psychological harm. Germany, France, Australia, Canada, and other nations have implemented similar ideas. These laws are totally incompatible with our system. Some of our own citizens have been harassed or even arrested in some of these countries, but our government has not stood up for them. Why? Because many of our bureaucrats believe in these laws. Take USAID. Many Americans are now in an uproar because they learned about over $400 million going to an organization called Internews, whose chief, Jeannie Bourgeot, boasted to Congress about training hundreds of thousands of people in journalism, but her views are almost identical to Kerry's. She gave a talk once about building trust and combating misinformation in India during the pandemic. She said that after months of a really beautifully unified COVID-19 message, vaccine enthusiasm rose to 87%. But when, quote, mixed information on vaccine efficacy got out, hesitancy ensued. We're paying this person to train journalists, and she doesn't know that the press does not exist to promote unity or political goals like vaccine enthusiasm. That's propaganda, not journalism. Bourgeot also once said that to fight bad content, we need to work really hard on exclusion lists or inclusion lists and, quote, really need to focus our ad dollars toward what she called the good news. Again, if you don't know, the fastest way to erode trust in media is by having government sponsor exclusion lists. You shouldn't be getting $1 in taxpayer money, let alone 476 million of it. And USAID is just a tiny piece of the censorship machine Michael and I saw across that long list of agencies. Collectively, they've bought up every part of the news production line: sources, think tanks, research, fact-checking, anti-disinformation, commercial media scoring, and when all else fails, straight up censorship. It is a giant closed messaging loop whose purpose is to transform the free press into exactly that consensus machine. There is no way to remove this rot surgically. The whole mechanism has to go. Is there right-wing misinformation? Hell yes. It exists in every direction. But I grew up a Democrat and don't remember being afraid of it. At the time, we figured we didn't need censorship because we thought we had the better argument. Obviously, many of you lack the same confidence. You took billions of dollars from taxpayers and you blew it on programs whose entire purpose was to tell them they're wrong about things they can see with their own eyes. You sold us out. And until these rather tiresome questions are answered, this problem is not fixed. Thank you.
Now, to be clear here, all right, there is a real danger of what's coming down the road in regards to the policies that the Biden-Harris administration and many congressional Democrats have laid down, which, of course, folks, I'm not expecting the Republican Party to come in and save the day. No, both parties have contributed to the online censorship and media suppression. Just right now, the Republicans are in charge, and right now, the Democrats are being called out for a lot of their hypocrisy. And plus, most notably, with everything that's being revealed by DOGE, we're seeing firsthand the abuse and waste, and overall, the mask is being revealed of Congress and also that government officials and entities that were involved with the massive amount of censorship that we saw during the last 4 years. This is not how a healthy republic activates or how it also distributes information to the people. The media can't be united and tell us that everything's going to be okay. The media's purpose, journalism's purpose, is to inform and empower the people so they know who is abusing power, what is going on, what policies are being implemented, and how they and their livelihoods and their families and their community will be affected. We have been left in the dark. And so, whenever any of you probably brought up a tweet or posted a message or anything on any of the various social media platforms, you probably noticed that there was a stop in regards to how many people were viewing what you posted, what you can and cannot say. We've all gone through it. Hardlands Media has gone through it. We've been through the trenches. And it is ever hopeful for me that maybe House Resolution 1233 can actually go through and we can actually get more free speech. We can reverse the 4 years of the Biden-Harris administration. I'm not going to hold my breath on it because it is in the establishment's best interest to keep information suppressed. And don't look to billionaires and executives to be your knights in shining armor. There's always a narrative that's always going to be promoted and controlled. Whatever happened to the idea of actually creating, and dare I say it, even going further, having an online space so it's a public forum in which the people are sharing ideas, expressions, and points of view. That's the power of the internet. That's why things have adapted and changed so much, because the internet is a power that must be respected. And we cannot forget that for a long time, the Democrats hid behind that mask of being, oh, we care about what others think. Oh, we want to be inclusive, until they got drunk off the Kool-Aid of absolute power. I didn't see AOC or Bernie Sanders sticking their neck out for people like Edward Snowden or Julian Assange or any of these other whistleblowers. Yes, they would maybe name drop them here and there, but follow through is key. And you know something, that just didn't happen. None of the Democrats give a damn about it. They're always quick, and not to mention, let's look at the 2024 election cycle. Better yet, 2016, 2020, and 2024. I'll never forget those election years. Saw firsthand when the liberals were at the height of their power. Constant attack articles against third-party voters, non-voters, independents, progressives, anyone that was going up against the mainstream idea of, oh, we got to vote for Hillary Clinton in 2016. Oh, we got to vote for Biden in 2020. And oh, we got to vote for Biden. Oops, let me put my eraser on. We got to vote for Kamala in 2024. And were you to go against that, you were silenced. Were you to go against that, you were ridiculed. Were you to bring up any kind of real constructive argument, you were pushed aside. How many journalists were smeared, disrespected, threatened, pushed around by the Democrats and corporate media? We saw it at its absolute height in 2024 because they were so desperate to have their little narrative that Kamala, oh wait, better yet, first Biden, then Kamala, had it in the bag to defeat Trump. It was a foregone conclusion how that election was going to play out. Yes, there were things that were going to possibly prevent Trump from getting reelected. But at the end of the day, with everything that went down, the Democrats screwed themselves over, perhaps willingly. It's debatable. Did Kamala really want to win? Did any of them really want to win? Or did they just realize that, oh my goodness, if we censor enough people, we could trick enough people to vote for us. If we control the narrative long enough, we could silence enough people. You know, a lot could be said about what we witnessed in 2024. But at the end of the day, if they're going to try and silence you, they will. And even though this might have been a Freudian slip, perhaps maybe this was an accident, perhaps it wasn't done on purpose, but I will once again ask all of you, my audience members, do you trust this fake show resistance that you're seeing before you, especially when this is accidentally? Maybe I'm being generous here, maybe I'm being too kind, or maybe she really meant it. What do you think?
Look, let me tell you something. I'll take a bit of umbrage here. I'll speak on behalf of my colleagues. I think I can say we are all willing to work with anyone who's serious about doing the work of censoring the American people and advancing progress. But they are not serious.
Willing to work with anyone about censoring the American people. Are you sure about that? Do you want to rethink that? Because you know something, the last time the Democrats had 4 years was the Biden-Harris administration. I noticed a lot of people in independent media got a severe gut check. A lot of people lost their platforms. A lot of people were kicked off of social media. Brilliant job, Democrats. You're showing your hand. I am ever hopeful that House Resolution 1233 actually, once again, pushes forward. But there was also another statement here too, all right? And I want to give a shout out to Michael Schellenberger, who was also speaking right next beside to Matt Taibbi. And I want to play this video as well for all of you. And I'll leave this as the final note.
Last Congress, you helped expose censorship grants at the National Science Foundation, specifically known as Track F grants. Can you tell us more about those censorship activities conducted associated with these grants?
Yeah, this was the National Science Foundation's Track F was basically to create censorship tools that would become sort of the middleware to, such as, NewsGuard, for example, is the most famous of which, or the Global Disinformation Index. The idea is to essentially impose on people's systems, either directly through their computers or adopted by social media companies, a set of tools that would allow centralized authorities to decide what the truth was and filter it for people. It's a horrifying program. All of Track F, in my view, should be eliminated. And I think there should be an investigation to figure out what in the world were they thinking when they created a program to basically have the taxpayers subsidize the creation of elaborate censorship tools that included the use of AI in creating that censorship.
So taxpayers are actually paying for the government to help private companies censor their free speech.
Yeah, and then the idea was that they were just going to, give these tools to Facebook and X and others to use, or to give them to Microsoft and others to use. It's awful stuff. And by the way, it also came from Department of Defense. So much of those NSF grants are sort of recycling older DARPA DoD projects.
Isn't that great? So that means, folks, whenever you message Hard Lens Media and saying, hey, how come I'm not being notified? Or hey, I'm being unsubscribed. And then you're realizing you're also being unsubscribed, not notified by, YouTube, in case you're noticing that your favorite content creators aren't showing up on your feed. Perhaps you're noticing, all of you across the political spectrum, you're noticing that your posts aren't going through. It's because your hard-earned tax-paying money was put into programs to censor. That's your tax-paying dollars at work. St. George Carlin was right. They want you guys to be uninformed. They want you guys not to question anything. They want you to be obedient and follow the orders and eat the bugs. And the media and our politicians tricked all of us. They played a good game. They played a very good game. Wake up to reality. They don't want you to talk to your neighbor. They don't want you to form strong communities or do community outreach or community aid. They don't want you to know your rights as a voter. They don't want you to know anything. They just want to keep you in the dark. And you're better than that. And we got to wake up to this fact.
When I coached T-ball, the kids shared helmets. And so occasionally there'd be an outbreak of lice. And we'd comfort the parents by saying it's not a sin to get lice, it's a sin to keep lice. So with these Track F grants, later today, I plan to reintroduce my bill to eliminate those. And I want to make a plea to the White House and anybody in the executive branch who's listening, or anybody at DOJ. You need to go after these Track F grants and defund anything that says mis, dis, or malinformation. Those are all, in my opinion, Orwellian terms. Also, we have an omnibus coming up in March where I'm scared to death we're going to refund all of these things. We're basically going to feed the lice that were contracted in the last administration.
And I say, hey, I want to get rid of that lice. I want there to be full transparency. And listen, I don't want anyone to be censored, deplatformed, demonetized, terminated, or none of that nature. I don't want any of that, period. For those who use the tools of censorship, it is weakness. For those who relied on it as a weapon, it is weakness. Pathetic. You're afraid of words, the exchange of ideas. Looking at you, vote blue, no matter who. Always promoting it, always ready to cancel, always ready to censor. I hope Representative Thomas Massie is successful with House Resolution 1233. I want to hold on to hope, but I've learned better than that. It's up to us. And thankfully, many of us are waking up to the fact that we need to preserve our First Amendment right for free speech. And we do invite Representative Thomas Massie to talk about this bill on our show because it affects all of us. It affects us now, and it will affect us in the future. It's either you stand for free speech or you don't. And I and Hardlands Media stand for free speech. I know what it's like to lose everything. No more. No more.